Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Mortgage Heroes Weekly Podcast. I'm Andy.
I'm Brian.
And the two of us are back today, and we're going to dice through a couple of industry topics and some things that are changing in the mortgage space. I mean, spring is like coming to an end. As crazy as it seems like we just started talking about spring, people are already talking about summer, but some things that we've been like predicting and talking about are starting to rear their ugly heads, I'm going to say ugly heads because it's not necessarily good. There are some solutions on the horizon, but you have to be aware of what they are and what you need to do about it. So we're going to talk about all that today.
Yep,
How you been, by the way? I haven't talked to you in like a week or two.
I feel like we've both been just go all week. I mean, I've sent you text messages like, "Hey Andy, I've been busy. I'm sorry. I know you were in the office next to me."
But I've heard you, man. You've been on the calls like crazy.
Yeah, today I was just on the phone all day. This last 2 weeks, my phone's just been ringing a lot more. But it's also because of the fact that I'm reaching out to a lot more clients more.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on, and from talking to one client, I get an idea to then say, hey, if this client's going through this situation, what are the chances that other clients might be in the same boat? And chances are very high. We've been doing a lot of outreaches these last couple of weeks, and we've found out that a lot of clients are in certain situations that do require certain help, and it feels good when you're able to, call on someone and say, hey, I'm actually going through a situation that's crazy that you called. You can now help. So we've been able to help clients, secure some HELOCs, some purchases, and more than anything, just find solutions. Sometimes it's just like, hey, I'm here. Are you okay? Where everything's good so far? Hey, we're hanging in there. Good.
Well, and that's actually where we're going to be starting our whole conversation topic today, as far as topics are concerned, is the HELOC one. I mean, so, the market is where it is at with rates. People got the golden handcuffs because they secured a super low first mortgage interest rate years ago. But man, HELOC seemed like that conversation has been like heating up because people either don't want to do cash out, they want to keep their first, they don't need as much money as other people might. So let's talk about HELOCs first. Yeah. And you actually sent me this one. This is from CNBC. So does the HELOC for debt consolidation make sense now? And this is what people need to know. So basically there's a good side to this conversation and a bad side. I'll just say good and bad for the sake of ease of conversation. It's very personalized, so we're going to talk about some of the generalities of this, what's happening in the market, and then whether you and then how you can know if you're on the good side of this solution or if it's on the bad side.
Yeah, definitely.
How do you want to kick this one off?
So one of the things that I've been noticing is that since 2022, a lot of my clients have, expressed or, have mentioned that, their debt has accumulated a little bit more than, they'd like to. Now, when I pull that back and see it from a bigger spectrum, it's not just our clients. It's like a lot of people are going through it. And just in conversations with family, friends, like, everybody feels a pinch in their pocket, and it's been going on for a few years now that you're honestly seeing it. But more than ever now, I see people actually being more honest and upfront about it, and I've really seen the opportunity for people to be able to, be smart with their property and be smart with the equity that they have, and a lot of them have either turned to using their equity to convert their garage or simply to wipe out a lot of the debt that they're carrying. In a specific scenario, we have a client that's going to be leaving the military here in August, and he's actually going to be converting his garage. So he tapped into his equity. He took out about, I want to say, $100,000 to get started with the conversion of the garage, and that's going to be one of his exit routes for once he's out of the military. He's going to get that converted, and then from there move on to somewhere up in Northern California to be able to then purchase his forever home. But doing so, he's making sure that he's leaving himself well set up here to be able to, if anything happens, he has his rental property and certain things in place to be able to, make up for that income that he's losing from being active. So I think right now is a very, very good opportunity to really assess your financial house and see what you're able to do and what you're able to, better, if anything.
So one of the things I know that they reference here is talking about, why a HELOC for debt consolidation makes sense. And now the core issue here is that there's debt to consolidate to begin with. And if you are in a situation where maybe you've been having to use your credit cards in order to just make ends meet, that is maybe a longer problem that's going to continue ongoing than just solving the issue once. Because if it's a fact of, the income being less than what it takes to have a sustainable life, then that income either needs to increase at the job you have or get a second job, or both people in the home have to work, or some version of all of that. But here's where maybe there's some change that can happen. If you're just having spending behavior problems and your income is satisfactory, if you could get your spending under control, then that may be where the HELOC for debt consolidation makes sense. And where I've seen this work and where I've seen this fail is people use the HELOC to pay off debt because they had a situation that they needed to pay that was large, like a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 fix in their life one time. That is easy for someone to use the house to use a HELOC to pay off because their behavior didn't cause it, right? A major medical bill, for example, is one of the ones I'm referring from my old days. The other part is a little harder to do, which is changing financial behavior. Spending at department stores, buying stuff that you can't afford, or buying stuff that you don't really need to replace. You already have a 72-inch TV and you're like, I need an 80-inch TV. Oh, I don't know. Do you? That's your choice. You can make that choice. But if you can't afford it, hang on to that 72-inch TV. I've seen both sides of this. I've done a HELOC for people before to get themselves out of financial trouble, but their behavior didn't change.
I like that.
And the second that they paid off all those credit cards, it looked good for like a month or two on their credit score, their credit report, and then boom, here comes the spending again because the behavior was never addressed. So I think with interest rates being the way they are in the environment we're in today, if you need to do a HELOC in order to pay off something that happened that your credit card's recovering because it was a single time event, go for it. If you're having a behavior problem, we need to have a separate conversation together.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point, and I think that's very important to highlight the fact that, your behaviors and your relationship with money is going to really dictate, the responsibility you have over it. One of the things I have noticed is that, it's very easy to get into debt. It's very easy to get approved for that credit card in the mail. It's very easy to accept that. But I really feel that if you don't change the behavior and the relationship with money, your habits won't change. Therefore, it's only a matter of time before you fall into that same pattern. And that's what I wanted to highlight. If you notice yourself being in that same pattern where you find yourself, at the end of the month, maxed out, maybe that's a sign that you don't need to, make more money. Maybe you just need to be smarter with your money. And I know people from different wide ranges of incomes that are very good with their money, some that are not very good with their money. And me, I've learned, the hard way as well of, having to manage your money the right way. So I think the behavior is more important than learning how to make money, because that's going to dictate how much of the money you make you actually get to keep.
Yeah, in the most simplest terms possible, you just need to figure out a way to spend less every month than you're making. And I know that right now that is inverted for some people because of where they live, how they live, and the certain circumstances and conditions that surround themselves on their budget every month. But even then, if you don't have a budget, start with a budget. If you aren't tracking your finances, start tracking your finances. The HELOC can come to your aid if you own a house and you have enough equity, if there's enough clearance to take that HELOC without negatively putting yourself in a more negative situation when it comes to your overall debt. So it needs to offer you a solution of ease on some other part of the transaction. You can't just go do the HELOC because you are bailing yourself out without a subsequent plan beyond that. So if you are in a position where your credit cards are way higher than the HELOC amount right now, as far as the HELOC rate is, take a look at that. Take a look at that and then pay your cards off and then maybe close those cards. On other shows, we've talked about leaving cards open because it helps with credit history over time, keep your score higher. But if you're having a problem with spending, sometimes the best thing to do is just put that credit card through the shredder. And if you do the HELOC in order to pay off those cards and they're a much higher interest rate than the HELOC is, then maybe you just need to go without having their credit card for a little bit, ease up, bring your spending back underneath what your income is, and then reset what your life needs to look like from a budget perspective.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely agree with that. And some of the ways that I feel the HELOC can be utilized as well is to invest on your current property. There's different additions that you can utilize it for, like converting your garage, adding a different unit. There's different ways to skin the cat, but that ultimately leads down the line to being able to reap a little bit more income, be able to get a little bit more cash to be able to sustain yourself for the next coming months. But I think it really comes down to what you said, your behavior. If your behavior is not aligned with your goals, then you're definitely not going to be there. You're going to find yourself in the same spot over and over again. One thing that I would suggest for every millennial that's on their phone all the time, like I am, a really good tool that you could utilize, and it's very simple to read and use, is the Rocket Money app. You literally download that, you connect your bank to it, and it's going to tell you exactly where all your money is going. Newsflash, you're going to be very, very, very surprised when you see how much money is going to certain areas. And then when you see the whole amount of where everything gets dispersed, you're going to have a moment of, how did I spend so much money on this one thing? And that in itself is going to start prompting you to say, okay, well, now I'm aware of that. Now I know where that money is going, how it's being spent. Now I can make changes. Now I can make adjustments. But being aware and letting that payment reoccurrently, just be there, you're gonna start feeling some sort of way when money's just being thrown away.
Yeah, and I think that on the do not do the HELOC side of this conversation is do not do the HELOC if you're unwilling or unable to change the behavior pattern.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Definitely don't do that. And if you're unwilling to like set a budget, if you have no budget and you need a budget and you're unwilling to make one, like don't do it. Like there's this like saying in creator space, like I don't want people to know I made that. It's like same thing in the loan space. Like there's no sense in us helping you do that if it's only going to just reset the same problem cycle for you. So don't attach our name to that. Not because we can't help you with the loan, but look, we want what's best for you beyond the loan closing. And that's why, this is our 20th anniversary this year. And we've kind of been around for that long for a reason. And it's not just because we're turning and burning stuff, but we've seen these kinds of situations time and time again. And the HELOC does not make sense if you have too little equity in your house. You're unable to make the payment on the home equity line of credit when it's executed, if it was to be approved, or if you're unwilling to change the behavior pattern. Yeah. I say address the root issue and then go on from there.
One of the things that that comes to mind is I heard Dave Ramsey when he was talking about his upbringing, how he got to where he is at. He mentioned one thing that stuck with me. He's like, every time I try to outspend my stupid. And he's like, it never worked out. And when he said that, I'm like, you know what? That's so true. Everybody thinks you could just go and make more money and it's going to make all the problems go away. But on the contrary, your problems just get even bigger because you feel like you have more resources, when in reality, it's not a money problem. It's an organization and discipline.
Yep. And whether you have, $100,000 or $1 million or $10 million, money's going to reveal more of who you are and reveal more of your habits as well. I was listening to another unrelated show last week, and they were making this exact point.
So true.
And it was a former professional athlete who had actually turned into a business person and then was a financial planner. And at every level, he was basically saying is like, look, your level of income and your level of wealth exposes what you are really doing
100%.
Under the surface.
Yeah.
Because whether you have $100,000, $1 million, or $10 million, his whole point was like whatever's on the inside is going to reveal itself at the level at which it can be afforded. And I'm like, whoa!
It doesn't.
All right.
Money doesn't change.
I know this,
Yeah.
but the way he put it, I was like, all right, mic drop moment.
It makes perfect sense. It doesn't change. It just makes you more of who you already are.
It reveals it.
Yeah, that's so good.
So let's go on, though, because I want to talk about housing a little bit. So this is from Realtor.com. This is more home listings are paving the way to a buyer-friendly market. Rising inventory, easing competition, and relatively steady prices are creating a more buyer-friendly market compared to last year. We've been talking about this a little bit because of inventory being on the rise. Rates are a little bit better than they were 2 years ago. Not necessarily as much better than they were in 2024, but the sentiment for both buyers and sellers has changed. And there's evidence of this. It sounds crazy to say this because it doesn't feel like it. If you read the headlines, you wouldn't think that this is the truth, but the numbers that we're looking at are inventories up, which means sellers are believing that the market can absorb what they're bringing to it. And then buyer applications are up. So they're both up at the same time, even though rates have kind of like neutralized and stayed stable. That to me is that sentiment, not just on the sentiment side being surveyed, but the numbers confirming the sentiment that has been delivered.
One of the things I will say to that is that we've had 3 years of this, cluster F market, and I think, I believe that this has given people enough time to understand the climate of how the market needs to be, handled. And I think that now more than ever, buyers are understanding the worth that they have opposed to the value of the seller. Whereas the seller needs to sell their house, I want to buy it, but I'm not going to buy it under their terms. I can now create an environment where I can negotiate the terms that benefit me a lot more, rather than just throwing a number and playing who can, offer the highest for this property that probably isn't worth it. And then now you have to probably do some work into that as well. The flip side that I see now is that buyers understand that, they know that. So going into, these negotiations, they're a little bit more savvy on the things that they're nitpicking, a little bit more clear on the things that they're choosing. Therefore, I feel they have a little bit more of a leeway to get a good deal from a seller that really needs to sell it, that their house has probably been on the market for quite some time now, they probably don't have many options, and this option looks like the viable one for them. So I think that now sellers are coming around as well to say that, hey, we also got to play ball with these prices and these deals, and we can't just sit on our high horse and expect them to just throw numbers at us and, you know, create a bidding war.
Yeah, and there's some evidence that the prices are like slowing, but they're not declining in all areas. There are some places that are in decline. They're not steep or sharp decline, but there's also the type of decline. Like single family housing prices are different than attached. Like sorry, let me rephrase that. Detached homes have a different price growth and price slowdown than the attached homes do. They have a little bit more of a hard hit on the brakes on the price growth acceleration. But the point is that the listings and the interest from the buyer demand is happening in parallel. So you have more listings hitting the market at the same time. It's kind of like one begets the other. It's like, oh, there's more people looking to buy a house, so this is a good time to sell.
Let's sell.
And it's like, I need to sell my house. Oh, look, it's creating more buyer demand. So they cycle. Yeah. But here's what I wanted to tell you from this, because this kind of stuck out to me. This is the 83rd straight week of annual inventory gains. Now, to some people, they'll see this as a flashing red light, like, oh, inventory's on the increase for 83 weeks. That means we're going to see massive price declines. Nah, I don't think so. The only thing that you could maybe argue with me that would cause or trigger that is if rates immediately plummet.
Yeah.
If rates plummet, then at the same time that rates plummet and you see inventory increase, then I think that inventory is going to get soaked up. There will be less of it because people are going to be like off the fence super fast and trying to buy.
I literally just had that conversation with the buyer that is looking to purchase out in Arizona, and we were talking about how we don't see a crash in prices, but rather a dip in prices and in homes. But as soon as we see rates drop, that dip comes right back up. So it's a very thin line that you ride if you're looking for a good deal. I told them you literally have to be on shopping every day, or you have to be ready to just move quickly, because in one week to another, rates could drop, all those houses could get flooded with offers, get accepted, and then you're still playing catch up. So I believe, like you were saying, there's going to be pockets of when, prices dip, but ultimately in those times, they're going to be snagged right back up because rates will dip for a little bit and then come right back up. So
one of the things that I found interesting about this is something we talked about last year, and we were talking about, median home price and this and that a lot. But one of the things that kind of struck out to me last year was the median list price per square foot. And the reason I said that is because this is going to be a cross section of condos, townhomes, duplex, threeplex, fourplex, or triplex, fourplex, single family homes, all this stuff, mansions, and still even in the last year, median list price per square foot has increased. It's very nominal. It's still 0.8%, basically 1%. It went up from $232 per square foot to $234 a square foot over the last year, which is still an increase. It's statistically insignificant, but it is, I'll say, stable. Until that starts dropping, I don't think you're going to see mass price drops either, because this is like all across all properties, across all areas, property types, sizes even. The price per square foot changing to the decline is actually going to be more of like a little warning sign to me going, okay, then maybe we have something up ahead that we should be looking out for.
Nice. So you're saying basically, like, if you start seeing square footage drop in price, that's an indicator that prices might be on the way down.
Yeah, or it's a reflection that they have been already.
Yeah.
Not that it's forthcoming, that it's already occurred.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, but the fact that it's went from 232 to 234 is telling us in hindsight now that it's still I'll say healthy.
Yeah.
Not that affordability is healthy, just that the prices have stayed despite all of the other conditions and changes around us, even with so much inventory coming up. 83 straight weeks of inventory increase, and the price per square foot is still in the positive. That makes sense. Do you follow me right there?
Yeah, I definitely follow. And I think it goes more to the point where it's like, well, we've been noticing this, and like you're saying, it's staying stable. So at least we know that there's some stability, although we don't like that type of stability, I'd say. We can account that that's something that, is consistent at least. And we can know that prices have been relatively in this price range. So I feel people will get more acclimated to, okay, now this is, how we have to purchase and move in this type of environment.
And the irony of it all is that if there is to be a price decline in rates, whether it's the Fed dropping rates and then the mortgage market following, or international calamity causing rates to go down, it actually will put this in concrete that price per square foot will probably solidify itself and hold for 12, 15, 18, 24 months.
Wow.
Because it's a slower moving target.
Yeah.
It's slower moving than just one segment and type of house, one zip code, one state, or one metropolis and whatever. I like that it's a cross section across all types of houses, all types of sizes, and across the entire nation. It's a really good barometer from my perspective. So at least for now, you have median list prices are up still, new listings are up, active listings are still up, and time on market isn't really suffering that much. It's not like you're going from 30 days to 60. It's like, oh, average days from 30 to 32. Okay, well,
great. It tanked.
Cool. It's not that bad.
It's such a detailed and precise stat that you noticed, and you would notice that.
Thanks for the compliment.
Yeah, right. I'm like,
okay, let's talk about mortgage demand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. So, and this is something that I know we've been seeing a lot because I'm hearing you on the phone. I'm hearing Will on the phone. You guys are fielding a lot more phone calls from people who are looking to get their purchase applications approved, and then you're doing a lot more of the HELOC thing, which we talked about at the top of the show, and even some cash outs here and there.
Yeah.
Our past client database is way more engaged now than they have been in like the last, I'd say 6 to 9 months, because I think we've reached a pinnacle where people are like, all right, I either got to do something or not do something. And the closer I get to being forced to do something, I feel like I have less control of whether I can or I will, or what it might look like to me. And I'll just have to face the consequence of my own personal delay. That's kind of the stuff over here. But what I wanted to bring up in this part is that regardless of whether it's still spring or it's summer, I think that the inventory thing is drawing people in to the mortgage application to home buy side. And I think personal financial pressure is forcing people to look at their home equity and see how it can help them out. I'm kind of hearing both sides of that occurring.
Yeah. So a lot of the conversations I'm having is clients saying, well, what am I able to do? What is an alternative route that I can take? I've heard about these ADUs. I've heard about investing in this. There's different types of things. There's a lot of demand for wanting to be able to invest in something, to be able to utilize that equity. I have some clients that I've done a cash out refinance, and they currently did another HELOC. This time around, they're like, I can't just keep drawing my equity. I need to put it to work. I need to invest in something. We had the conversation of what it would look like for him to, add an ADU to his backyard. He's exploring different options, but what I've been hearing a lot is that, they want to utilize the equity because they know that it's there, it's viable, you can utilize it, but they don't know what to put it to use for. They're also scared to just take it and not utilize it and just have it there and, waste it on things that they don't need. But it's almost as if they're waiting for somebody or something to happen where they're like, hey, you can take this and put it into here. But the biggest issue that I see is having the motivation to actually pull the trigger. And that goes across the board for refinances, investments, and even purchases. I have buyers that want to buy, are approved, well approved, but still have that hesitation. So I feel that the demand is definitely there, but there isn't enough motivation to actually tip over that glass and have everybody start purchasing, healthy, like we've been used to these during these types of seasons in the year. So I feel that it's more of having the proper vehicle to then invest your equity that gives clients and these homeowners the motivation to say that, okay, I could do that. I could see myself doing that. And I think a lot of the conversations I have is, I want to do something, but I don't know what.
Well, I think that kind of draws a line, too, between those who have choices of what they can do and those who don't. And this kind of goes back to the whole spending behavior thing. Like there are some people that I know you're talking to that they've kind of spent themselves into a problem and they need the house to bail them out.
Yeah.
And then there's people who are like, hey, I've got this equity. What can I do with it? And then they're doing the garage conversion or the junior ADU or the, granny flat in the back. And then that's going to convert some income for them, whatever. So the house is basically investing in itself to create some revenue and income for the property owners. I get that part. The other thing, though, that is interesting to me, and we talked about this. We did a whole show on this 2 weeks ago, which was the top 10 things you need to do for 2025 if you want to buy a house. And the reason I bring that up is because there is a growing number of mortgage applicants that are buying their first house, even in this market condition. Now, everyone that's already in this market or has seen a market that was way more favorable, let's say, where the rates were lower, the prices were lower, inventory was good, they got the house of their dreams. Well, everyone who's trying to buy a house now, they haven't had that experience, so they don't see it through that lens. They don't understand what it's like to have tasted the fruit the way you have. And so for them, the aspiration to buy a house is just as strong, even though the conditions are not the same. So if you're finding us right now, this part of the show, by the way, you can click on the banner above and you can actually go watch our top 10 things you need to do in 2025 to purchase a home. And it's done by chapters. So each little section we went through, you can watch that right now. So go take a look at that. But my point is that the demand on the mortgage side on both sides of the deal is really strong. And I think going into the summer, it's going to perpetuate because I don't see people's financial situations getting better unless they spend less money, make more money, or cure that debt in some other way. And the people on the buying side are either going to buy a house or they're going to be stuck in rental land for the foreseeable future unless they make that choice.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm noticing as well is that a lot of buyers are thinking a little bit more long-term now when they purchase. I was at a networking event the other day, one of our past guests, Andrew Greer, phenomenal mastermind. If you guys are here in San Diego looking to invest, I definitely encourage you to join and come out to the events. But he mentioned one play that I really think that people that are looking to get started, want to invest, or look at buying a house here in San Diego for a long term, one of the key plays that I see a lot of investors or just regular people that are buying houses that want to aspire to get into the investment or just find a different vehicle to invest in their long term, you're able to do what's called the triple play, where you're buying a single family house that has a garage in it. You then work on converting the garage, and then the end play would then put an ADU in the backyard. This then allows you to basically, quote unquote, develop 3 units, one being, the SFR, your garage conversion, and then the ADU in the long term. That sets you up for a very, very well, second play, which then means that you can now turn that into a rental, reap the benefits of that rental income to then qualify for that house of your dreams. Or you can just sell it, take the equity, dump it into your next property, and then that's another play. What I'm getting at is that, it's all about setting yourself up. And I think that if you think that you're getting set back, it might just be a different outlook of just getting a set up. And I just think that, if you look at it from a different point of view, you could still purchase a house. It's just, how are you going to do it?
And what I'm about to tell you is a little bit on the nerdy side, so hang with me. Part of home price appreciation staying the way it is because people are continuing to buy houses. But in areas where people are doing the triple play, where they're buying the single family house and they're doing the garage conversion and they're building ADU in the back, it's lifting up the property values in that entire neighborhood and sometimes that zip code based on the density of how many of these are happening at a certain time. Now, fast forward 12 months, if there's been a bunch of this activity in your neighborhood, and then now you go to list your house is now perceived as one that someone could do a triple play on.
Bam.
And then we go back to the price per square foot. And that price per square foot, based on the type of home, the area you're at, and the total square footage, is where that metric really matters when it comes to pricing your house right. And I think this is one of these kind of hidden, and it's kind of baked underneath the statistics because it's underneath the surface. You don't see it on the surface. You just see the number. Oh, median home price is this across the country. But baked inside of that are deals like this, where let's say a house that was $700,000 that has a garage conversion, a second story built, now is worth 1.6. Okay, now you're talking about a house that was $700,000 that's now worth 1.6. That when the person next door wants to sell, well, they're not selling at 1.6 because it's not 700 anymore. It's maybe 900. 900 now because after converting it, it's 1.6.
Yes.
Now that's lifting up, and that price per square footage continues to tick, 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 and it's all happening under the surface. Thanks for hanging with me. Does that make sense?
Wow, that makes perfect sense. It's like, it's adding the square footage down the line that's going to give you that boost, and I think a lot of people don't look at that. It's like looking at you really have to visualize like, I'm really going to build this out here, and down the line, it's going to be worth this. If you're able to capitalize on that mindset, it's going to be a lot easier when you're looking at certain properties, what you're looking to do, how you're looking to do it. It's just setting yourself up for the right play.
I see two things happening, and this is kind of my final thought on this topic is, with mortgage applications being 20% higher this week than they were a year ago at the same week, and I'm not just saying this for a 1 week little snapshot. I think this is an indication of, at large, that people who are sick and tired of waiting are doing something about it. Yeah. And those who are kind of sick and tired of waiting and really, really just wanting to buy are ready. They're just like, let's do it now. There's just not, it's not, the things I'm waiting for aren't materializing. I just got to go do it now.
I just had that conversation where the client's like, I just missed out on these opportunities because I didn't pull the trigger. And now I'm backtracking and looking for something to do because I don't want to miss that opportunity again.
Yeah. I think that, again, that's basically FOMO.
Yeah.
Right. It's a FOMO move, but behind that FOMO is like, you know what? I've wanted to buy a house. I didn't buy a house. You know what? I'm sick and tired of waiting.
And
you know what? I really want to own. Well, now I'm going to have to just go do it in the conditions that I have before me.
So funny thing is that conversation I had, it was a referral through one of our partners. He's actually went to college and was in the same frat as our past guest Sam.
Oh, wow.
And Rich Summers.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, so we were talking about
That's crazy.
Like, yeah, like I don't know if you know this guy from San Diego, Rich. I'm like, wait, what is that? He's like, he does like little like hotels. I'm like,
bro, you don't know. Yeah, no, we're in Rich's.
Like, yeah, we're in his group. He's
we're
like,
in his group,
what
man. What are you talking about?
I was in his fraternity. I was like, what the heck? What a small world.
crazy.
And then I like, so then Sam. He's like, yeah, he was in my fraternity too. I'm like, yeah, what the heck?
Oh,
I'm like, so he's like, yeah, I see all them doing their thing. He's like, I'm actually trying to operate. He's in Arizona, so he's looking to take some stuff down out there.
Yeah,
but full circle.
Yeah. Well, we're going to close today talking about home prices. So this is from one of my favorite places, what used to be called CoreLogic, now called Cotality. And basically, here's the bottom line up front, everybody. Year-over-year price growth slowed to 2% in April of 2025. Now, this is June. Like, yeah, why are you talking about April? So it's always a lagging indicator. We get this information between 30 and 60 days after all the data comes in. So at the end of April 2025, we had the year-over-year price growth was still at 2%. That's growth. That's still growth. 2%, not 0, not -2, 2 with a plus handle in the front. Now, single-family attached homes did better than single-family detached homes did better than attached homes. Attached homes are townhomes, condos. Those had a decline of 0.08%. Not 0.8, 0.08%.
Minimal.
And that's the first annual decline since 2012. It's noteworthy only because it's the first time it's happened in the last 13 years. Yes, despite the collapse of 2008 and 9 that 2012 followed. And yes, despite all the shutdown that happened in 2020, this is the first time that you see single-family attached homes posting a decline in the last 13 years.
Wow. One of the things I will say is that the name switch up from CoreLogic to Cotality, wild. Like
that's your take. Like, that's your take, bro.
The connotation just goes insane. Like,
okay.
No, but honestly, for me, I can't really how do I say it? The data, is the data. It is what it is. Truthfully, it's good to just have a good measure of where this is at. Unfortunately, it's not like something that I could take and run with and say, hey, I could do this based off of this information. But it's just good to know that, hey, things are moving. Things are getting, hopefully more affordable. But we know that that's not the case.
But that's only a barometer of, I think, the cost of the mortgage at this point, because house prices are where they're at. Even if attached homes are having this decline, again, you're going to find pockets where the decline is way faster than the national average. It does mean something, though, that the national average has finally dipped into the negative territory, but it's really by such a small amount. It's not as impressive as it might sound on the top, but it's still a growth chart. You're circling right here. It's a growth chart, not a contraction chart. And they're even saying that the forecast is greater than the 2% that we saw right now. So all this talk, all these headlines, all these bullet points, all these pundits on TV, all this stuff talking about house prices flattening, house prices declining, the real estate market catching fire, all this, we see it all too. We see every single one. Some of that just goes in my inbox every day because I'm on lists for stuff that watch out for these things. But then, okay, well then if that's all the case, why is it that we have a forecast of 4.3% year over year from 25 to 26?
And that's where it just becomes so you can't really trust it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you can search up in the internet and find whatever it is that fits your point of view. And whatever it is that you look at, you can make your decision based off of that, but you have to read, in between the lines at one point. You have to come back to reality. And the reality is that things aren't coming down, and it doesn't look like they're going to be coming down anytime soon. Therefore, if you're embodying that mindset of I'm going to wait for the market to drop, you're going to continue to wait. It just logically doesn't make sense. Mathematically, we're seeing it doesn't make sense. And by the data that's being gathered day in and day out, where do we see that crash? Unless something black swan completely out of this earth that we just don't foresee coming happens, okay. But from what we're seeing, everything's just pointing to the indicator of.
Do you want to know what I think this 4.3% projected growth thing is?
Yeah, please.
I think it's economists and analysts knowing that the rates are at their peak. I think it's them knowing that rates are where they're at and they only have one direction to go, which is down.
Yeah.
If the Fed is look, the Fed's been where they're stuck, right? They've been at their rate now for how long?
What excuse do they have now?
Okay, right? Okay, so put that anchor in place. Okay. More inventory is hitting the market and it's not causing a rapid decline in home prices.
Boom.
Okay. Mortgage applications are on the way up, right? And if rates are also, let's say, at their localized high for the last 12, 24, 36 months, and they're only going to stay or go lower, which way will prices go? Prices will go back up. Because if rates go down, then we can afford more house, then price will go up. I think that the forecast of 4.3%, basically being twice of what the 2% is we're already looking at from last year, is knowing that all these conditions are what they are, and the only thing that's going to move next is going to be mortgage rates staying or going lower, and people having to get houses at that rate and at that price.
Yeah, and I honestly feel that they're holding off until the last minute that they can to just, cut the rates. But I just feel that, it was inflation one day. We got that under control. The labor market, okay, we seen what happened last week. So it just comes to what other excuse, what other pivot are you going to say to avoid the fact that you need to cut the rates?
They're gonna look for the Fed to be so data reliant. They don't have an argument to. They don't have many arguments left to stay where they're at.
Exactly.
In my opinion,
I agree.
They definitely have no argument to raise them. And so their only option is to take them down. Now, the 10-year yield has to follow. The mortgage-backed security market has to follow in lockstep, and that's fine. But again, remember it might have been a month ago now. Remember when we were talking about how the most housing permits in the country were pulled by two states? Texas and whoever was number two. But combined, they pulled 24% of all the new building permits. They would not be doing that if they thought there was an impending collapse on the horizon. It's not that's terrible business. I'm not saying that builders have made the right choice forever ad nauseum until for the end of history, but that's terrible business for having been in business for so long, so many decades, and built so many hundreds of thousands of homes that you'd be doing that now in a market environment where you don't expect rates to go down. And people are expecting rates to go down.
100%. And for the longest time, we saw the sentiment of builders not being there. 100% of them not wanting to build. So it's what and changed?
Now that's back.
What changed? So if there's something that hasn't been brought up to the podium, something that hasn't been brought out to the public, maybe they are working on things on the back end and we just don't know. I'm confident that hopefully that's what they're doing, and it would make sense because obviously if they time it correctly and hopefully I would hope that they're working on it in the back end. They meet at the right time and things clash correctly.
Yeah, I just think that this is an admission that all the conditions that we currently are facing are stuck in place. Yeah. And the one thing that's going to move that would cause this to all look different in the rearview mirror is rates.
And I think also maybe this is just my personal opinion, but I feel maybe Jerome Powell doesn't want to also give off hey, I'm doing what they're telling me to do. So he's also maybe in a way putting his personal, thoughts on this and saying, I'm going to hold my ground.
Maybe, but not
that's
all.
Just my argument.
Yeah, but not all the Fed members agree.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. Is these Fed members, they go on TV, they write articles, they write opinion pieces about things, and they do hit pieces here and there, and so they don't all agree on whether they should stay or why they should stay. You certainly have a lot of other financial analysts. You have Wall Street and other people who are big players in financial and economic space saying, "Hey, the Fed needs to drop rates," and it's not because they're some sort of apologist for the president. They're just saying that it doesn't make sense to stay here given the conditions we have, given jobs the way they are, again, all the reasons that the Fed said they needed to keep the rates where they're at have now gone away. And they're still holding, even though all the arguments they made to keep it there are now not on their side of the table.
I just feel that, bringing down the rates would give a huge ease to a lot of people, a little breathing room. And although they don't have to tank the rates, easily just release the pressure, and I think that's what we need. I'm
going to bookend this with the way we started our conversation today. So if home prices have if home prices have grown 2% since last year, and they're forecasted to go up by 4.3% from 25 to 26, this adds more fuel to the fire that if people are in financial distress and need to do debt consolidation and they need to use a HELOC, do it. Do the HELOC, because this is also the other truth of the HELOC. If you get an adjustable rate HELOC and rates are the highest they're at, in the foreseeable future that they will be because the Fed has to drop rates, then that means the cost of paying down your debt with a HELOC will decrease over time as well. So if this is the localized peak, then you can see yourself stepping down in your cost to pay down your debt by doing the HELOC versus just carrying your credit cards around and trying to pay them off a lot slower.
Oh, 100%. And just to add on to that, you can do a HELOC not on your primary house. You could do one on your secondary house. You could do one on your investment property as well. So you don't have to put your property, up for collateral, but you could still reap the benefits by using one of your other properties that somebody else is already paying for that mortgage. So what I mean by that is that, don't be afraid to take, advantage of what you currently have right now, because down the line, if your goal is to either sell or refinance that property, you're just getting access to something that could help you out in the time right now. And down the line, there's a huge opportunity for you to be able to make that up. I have a client that is taking out his equity right now from a property out in Florida. He knows he's going to sell his house in a year or two. So he's like, might as well just play with my equity right now. If I need it, I have it. If I don't, great. I don't have to use it, but at least I can feel comfortable knowing that I have that in my back pocket if anything happens.
Yeah, no, that's super smart. I mean, people who are in a position of homeownership right now, you have choices.
Yeah.
And that actually, it actually is funny as I say that, that might actually work against you. Sometimes it's easier to make a choice when your back's pinned up against the wall. You're like, I only got one way out. I got to find my way out of it. Sometimes making choices can cause some, analysis paralysis. But if you are in a situation where you're like, hey, I got to consider cash out, or I got to look at my home equity line of credit, home prices are kind of going to be staying where they're at, especially if you are in a major metro city where the prices really accelerated during 2020, 21, 22, and they've flatlined or slowly ticked up since then. You're most likely in a safe category, and there's not a cataclysmic failure on the horizon for yourself. So take a look at that as we kind of wrap up for today.
Yeah, no, my final thoughts is just it's definitely season. It's the season to be brutally honest with yourself, brutally honest about your finances, brutally honest about everything in your life. And I feel that once you're able to get to that root and really see things clear, you can really plan forward. And I think it's time for you to, if you're in a situation where you want to change and you want to make things a little bit different, you have a house. I feel you can, weigh your options out, really look at everything. And if you're in that position where you definitely need the help, you have a house, I think it's time to take away that emotional point of view and say, hey, I have the help. I know where I could go to get the help. It's just going to require bringing it into my property or my mortgage. But look at it like this. If that was your only option, would you take it? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But if it's your option right now that you're able to take it, I feel confident and I believe that your house is the one thing that you're always going to, no matter what, protect. So I feel that doing that, it's just going to put you in a better position to be more motivated to get out of that high debt right now, or just be able to, stay confident and make sure that you can continue paying your house, knowing that you don't have all this debt on this end.
Yeah, that's good, Brian. Let's go to the end here. What was your favorite part of today's show?
My favorite part of today's show was totality. Just kidding. No, my favorite part is honestly, I really thoroughly enjoy speaking about the HELOCs, not just because, we're doing them and we can do them, but I think it's, it's one of those things that people don't really realize that it's an option, that it's out there, that it can help them if they really need the help. And all it takes is just having those conversations, being brutally honest about, hey, this is the situation I'm at. I want to get out of it. What are my options? The worst thing that could happen is it's not an option for you, and then we go right back to the drawing board. But chances are there's an opportunity for you to get help.
Good. I like that a lot. I'm going to choose a different one today because I have nothing else to echo on that sentiment for you today, which is I'm going to talk about listings. Yeah. I love that so much more listings are hitting the market, regardless of what the reason is that the seller has to sell. I love that we're seeing more listing inventory. And what I think is walking down the street hand in hand together right now is listing inventory increasing and mortgage applications increasing. One is causing the other, or it's working on its own, which is going to benefit the other. And I really like the way that's headed going out of the spring season into the summer. I think that is a really, really good sign.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So we'll stay tuned.
Well, thank you for joining me once again here today, Brian, and thank you all for watching the Mortgage Heroes Weekly Podcast. Next week, we'll be back with Will, and we're going to carve out some more stuff. We got a lot more to talk about in the market, more solutions, I think, that I overhear you guys talking about that we're going to bring onto this show, and, of course, some other great guests for our other playlist called Friends of Mortgage Heroes. So remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so every time we drop a new episode, you hear about it first, and then make sure you check out our Friends of Mortgage Heroes playlist. They have a lot of friends who we have a long-standing relationship with, that we have deep trust for in and around mortgage and real estate, and we would love for you to interact and engage with them as well, and we look forward to seeing you every single week here on the show. So thank you all for watching, and for Brian and myself, we had a great show today. You did a good job, man.
Thank you, Andy.
See y'all next week.
Bye, guys.
If you enjoyed this video and you want more of our content, subscribe here, and if you'd like to watch another video right now, click here.